All right, let's talk about how to actually study. Not just the stuff we've always done, but the things that science shows really, truly work for getting better grades. So if you've ever put in the hours but didn't see the payoff, stick around. We're going to fix that. Does this feel a little too real? You know, you spend hours and hours with your books, your highlighters are all dried up, you've reread your notes until you can't even see straight, and then you get to the test and poof, it's all gone. It is so frustrating, and today we're going to break that cycle for good.
Okay, first things first, we have to talk about what I call the great study myth. These are all those habits that feel super productive. You know, they feel like you're really working hard, but in reality, they're probably holding you back.
Let's meet the usual suspects, highlighting everything in sight, rereading your notes over and over, and of course, the all-night cram session. We've all been there, right? But here's the tough truth. Research shows these methods just aren't that effective. They create what's called an illusion of knowing. The words look familiar, so your brain thinks it knows the material, but you haven't actually locked it in. And oh, this is a big one. The whole learning style myth. You've heard it a million times. Oh, I'm a visual learner, or I'm more of a hands-on person. Well, the reality is, science has shown again and again that the best study strategies work for everyone. The goal isn't to find your one style. It's to use proven techniques that make your brain work in a few different ways at once.
So if all that old stuff doesn't work, what does? Well, the answer is actually a really simple but incredibly powerful shift in how you approach studying. It's time for what I like to call the active recall revolution. This right here is the absolute key. It's called active recall, or it's sometimes the testing effect. It's all about pulling information out of your brain, not just trying to shove it in. Think about it like this. Every time you force your brain to remember something without looking, you're strengthening the path to that memory. It's the difference between watching someone else lift weights and actually picking them up yourself.
And get this is not some new idea. Way back in 1890, the famous psychologist William James figured this out. He said that real learning happens with active repetition, not passive. You have to make your brain do the work to find the answer. So how do we actually put this into practice? Well, our very first technique is built right on top of this idea, and it's simple. You have to start testing yourself all the time. This means you stop just passively reading your notes. Instead, you turn everything into a question. You see a chapter heading? Turn it into a question and try to answer it. Use flashcards, cover up the page, and explain the concept out loud. The act of trying to remember is the thing that actually builds the memory. That's the magic. Now, if you want to take it to another level, you have to try the Feynman technique. This is an incredible way to find out what you don't know. You basically try to explain a topic in the simplest terms possible, like you're teaching it to a little kid. The second you get stuck or have to use fuzzy language, boom, you've just found a gap in your knowledge. That's exactly where you need to go back and study. Okay, so you're testing yourself, which is awesome, but when you study and what you study is just as important. And this brings us to two more absolute powerhouse techniques: spacing your studying out and mixing it all up. This is the science behind why cramming is so bad for your memory. Your brain needs time to process and store information. So studying for, say, 30 minutes every day for a week is so much more effective than one long 3.5-hour marathon session the night before the test. It might not feel like you're doing as much in the moment, but the results in the long run are just undeniable. Now let's build on that with interleaved practice. So instead of doing 20 math problems of one type and then 20 of another, you mix them all together. Now this is going to feel harder, for sure, but it's what's called a desirable difficulty. It forces your brain to not just learn how to solve a problem, but to figure out which strategy to use in the first place, which is what you have to do on a real test. And you don't have to take my word for it. Look at this. In one study, a group of 7th graders who studied math the normal way, one topic at a time, scored a 42% on the test a month later. The other group did the exact same problems but just mixed them up. Their score? 74%. That is a massive, massive difference just from changing how they practiced. Of course, all of this really starts with how you take notes in the first place. I mean, if your notes are just you trying to write down every single word a teacher says, you're missing a huge opportunity. We need a system that's built for active learning from the very beginning. And for that, let me introduce you to the Cornell note-taking system. It's absolutely brilliant because it forces you to do active recall. During class, you just take notes like normal in the big right-hand column. But then, after class, you go back and pull out the main ideas and write them as questions in the skinny left column. And here's the magic.
To study, you just cover up your notes on the right and try to answer your own questions. You've basically created a personalized quiz on every single page.
Here's what it looks like in practice. See? You've got your detailed notes on the right, and then these simple cue questions on the left that trigger your memory. And then at the very bottom, you write a 1 or 2 sentence summary of the whole page. It's not just a way to record information, it's a machine for learning it. Okay, we have busted some major myths and we have laid out a whole set of powerful science-backed tools. So let's put it all together. Let's build your new study plan.
Here it is, your new toolbox. It's time to stop just being a passive sponge for information and start being an active, engaged learner. So, no more mindless highlighting. Make active recall your go-to move. Space out your studying and mix up your practice problems. And start it all with the smarter note-taking system that sets you up for success right from the start. You know, learning how to learn is probably the most valuable skill you can ever pick up. It's going to help you in every single class, and honestly, for the rest of your life. So I'm going to leave you with this question. Based on everything we just talked about, what is the one thing you're going to change about how you study, starting tonight?